back, then you learn how to do your own style. So I think copying is a very fundamental process of learning. But your question about making the barriers so low, I guess there are different barriers. That's why some barriers so high that we reach the stage of PhD, permanent head damage. So a number of us have that permanent head damage, including yourself. But I'll leave that to the other panelists to talk about the barrier being low. I think barrier starting low is good because you encourage people. Just like you don't just one step and reach the heaven. Again, that's a Chinese proverb. 一步登天, as if you can jump up to heaven straight away in one step. So the barrier, I guess, it has to do with how to scaffold the barriers. So I'll just stop.
Well, I think the barrier is low, but the expectation of success is so high. I mean, short of Mark Zuckerberg, you are not a success, and that's a problem. I think that's really, right now we stop appreciating small things people do. If you don't have a TED Talk worthy topic, you're not a success. But I mean, I'm fortunate enough to be at the age of remembering what the Singapore, Taiwan looked like before it's the developed countries. And I'm living in China, I'm experiencing going through that again. I think the question is we are losing the context. We are starting to losing the context to innovate. We start thinking, we try to grasp on every models which works before. That's why we grab onto the obsession with failure with the venture capital model in Silicon Valley. I mean, right now it's interesting to sit here talking about this because right now if you cannot read an AI article without mentioning how innovative China is. And in 10 years, when China is successful, then is that the time the whole world will come back to see, okay, how does the Asian tiger mob did it? How does the Asian tiger mob did it with their stake and everything on that memory-based learning? Is that where we are heading? I mean, right now we are grasping the trail of success. We are grasping the trail of what we think as the factors of success. But right now, the problem is the barrier of entry is low, but the expectation of failure is, the success is so high. That's where we are talking about failure is okay. But not to control the failure, but to control what we define as success, a real contribution, a real impact. One thing about education is this, related to Maker, is Joey Ito, the director of MIT Media Lab. MIT Media Lab used to have the motto says, demo or die. Do something, make it workable, people can see it working. If you cannot demo, you fail. When Joey Ito visited Shenzhen in 2014, when he went back to MIT, he changed the motto. Right now, it's deploy or die. If your things is not useful to a couple hundred people, you fail. And that's where we move the target. That's where we're starting to thinking about where Maker can help. It's not about learning technology. I mean, that's where the low barrier of entries. Right now, it's learning about empathy, learning about what people really need, not to thinking about what other people need. Or even worse, looking at a Silicon Valley way is I create the technology, you guys learn to use it. That's what we are, a lot of times that's what we end up teaching in this Maker class.
Yes, I would like I'm not going to add on, but I'm going to really question copying. We have copied for a long time, and copying, I know it is, I've been in Singapore for about 30 years. I'm married to a Singaporean. So we have 老师, 最大的老师, 很大的老师, and we all copy the 老师. But what will happen is, are we problem recognizers? Are we coming to see what is the issue? We are living in a very fragile society where we have many more problems coming in because of technology. these need to be seen. If we tell young children, you made a success, you copied me brilliantly, are they really seeing the needs of a society that is vastly changing? So the act of copying has to be very carefully scaffolded, and would it be right? I would like to ask that question to the audience rather than me answering. I think with an insecure future, we need to ask ourselves better questions. Are we on the right moral track? What happens with technology? What happens with children if they experience success or perceived success in copying from an early age? How will they fare as adults when things will not be the way that are photocopied out or spit out? So I think the philosophical issues, and maybe the audience, or maybe you. Yeah, you're young.
May I respond?
Yes.
Certainly, I think what we said shouldn't be taken out of context. Okay, all of us started learning by say papa, papa, or say baba, right? It's copy. But
Yes.
there's a Chinese proverb that says 青出于蓝而胜于蓝. And that's the part that is careful beyond that. Not to copy, but once you learn how to do it, you do better. Even you innovate a new way of doing things. The green color, 青出于蓝而胜于蓝, green color of blue is better than blue. That's the problem. So I think the copying is not be a copycat and be a copycat forever. You start from a base that you can do the demonstration, and then you innovate and go further. So while I agree with you, we are not copying for copying's sake. We copy to show that it is possible to do it, and I can do it better.
You know, my son's first word was potato.
So thinking about copying and the thinking about makerspace, let me ask you one question. Let me give you this. If I show you a picture of a 12 years old Chinese girl soldering in a pretty messy background environment, and 10 years ago, if I show you these pictures and tell you it's in China and subtitle the picture, it's called China, Sweatshop, Child Labor. And how do you subtitle this today? China, Makerspace, Future of Innovators. And so what's the difference between these two 12 years old? The first one gets paid 200 RMB a week to do the job. The second one paid 200 RMB an hour to do the job. And that's the only innovation we have. Now we figure out how to charge them to do the work. So the thing is, so getting back to this copying that's actually fundamentally how human learns. That's fundamentally how we progress. Things doesn't come out from vacuum. Steve Jobs was not the only person who's thinking about personal computer. That's Home Computer Brew Club. There are about 600 PC companies started at the same time as Steve Jobs. That is the perception. That's right now we are so ingrained with this core of uniqueness. I have to do something absolutely different. Remember, we live in a planet of 7 billion people. 1 in a million idea, there's 7,000 people who has it. Coming back to learning from Shenzhen is really, we live in a community. We have a common intellectual property. We refer to each other. We inspire by each other. We are inspired by each other. That's what copy is. It's not a straight Louis Vuitton bag. That's the Sanzai phone. That's when you're starting to tag in a 7th speaker to an existing phone to solving a problem for construction workers. That's where copy is. That's where this very interesting, the two statement is the very Western side of it has to be unique, but there's enough discussion about the core of uniqueness. And now come back to, that's where it's interesting for the next 10 years with the rise of China, the Chinese philosophy, the Asian thinkings, the Asian educations. Are we going to be better? Let me give you another number. Today in the US, the best performing group is Asian male, and they're 40s to 50s. This is exactly my age group, and most of us grow up with Tiger Mom. And we are the best performing group right now. So right now, I think this is the thing we have to think about when we come into maker education, is what exactly are we doing with maker education? Are we just getting them to do the things 30 years ago, Singaporean kid is doing it for money, for US dollars? And is that progress?
I want to add something to this. So I heard David talk about the 12 years girl story like several times in different locations. And actually in classroom, so we have some major in university called education. And then that means education is something we require profession to do that. And what's the story behind the 12 years old girl? I think some difference is it's like, so when we design a STEAM unit in a real classroom, there are several layers that we are talking about. So the basic layer called skill, and that means the goal of this layers activity is to help kids, to help your student master some certain skill. Just like say papa, say mama, something like that. You say it, and then what's happening is copying. Because the goal of this layer is master the skill. And then we can move on to the next layer called task. So educator can give some tasks to a student, and then they fulfill it. So if I take Scratch, so a lot of people here know Scratch, the programming tool for kids. Yeah, Scratch. Okay, Scratch. And then, so in the skill level, we can say, okay, move out one block, a certain block, to the programming area. That's skill. And then task level, we say, okay, now let's try to draw a rectangle. How many ways you can draw it? That's task. And then, what's the next level? It's called project. So if you can figure out several ways to do something, like several ways that you can use the blocks, to draw out a rectangle, and then now the educator, your teacher or your parent can give you a project and more open-ended topic, like, okay, now how can we prepare a gift for your mom together with Scratch? It's something like that. So copying is not something we should feel shame or what, but it's just different levels of learning and different levels of education. And then there is something behind the 12 years old kids happening in different time. If today, I think as educator, we should fulfill all the same behind it. We should make sure, okay, so now we are doing something. We are doing something to embrace failure, you should believe in yourself and try new things and create new solutions. Is something like that.
I just would like to add something, because I mean, I've been in Singapore 30 years. I'm married to an Indian, and I do a lot of work in India. And India is actually another economy that is coming very up. It's actually, in terms of population, nearly the same as China. And we also deal with very different learning styles. And I think this is often ignored. Yeah, I mean, I miss it a little bit. You were brought up in that particular style. I mean, I don't want to add in my European style of learning, but I also want to add in that among Asia, we have very different learning styles. And I wonder how would that affect the future in making, in failing, in adapting, so that we are also recognizing that Asia is built up out of so many cultures. How would that, you are a young generation, can you think about it? Well, the different learning styles, I mean, you come from a different perspective, and your ethnic background, how would it affect your learning in making and doing? Is it about copying? Is it about seeing? Is it about visual? What is it? You're very hands-on.
So to me, I feel that I learn better when I copy. I'm not sure about everyone here, but I learn better when I copy, let's say, because I'm not good at memorizing, so I copy my friend's answer usually. But because during tests I copy, then I remember better. So when people ask me, in a non-formal setting, I can answer pretty easily because I copied before that, so now I remember better. But even through when we learn about repairing, the first step is actually to understand what goes inside the appliances. So toasters, iron, oven, they are all different appliances, but they have one thing in common, which is they are all heating element appliance. So I will ask them to open up an appliance that is simple enough, draw out the circuit, understand the circuit inside. So how do you think the iron works? Do you think it's similar? How do you think the oven works? Do you think it's similar as well? They all have heating elements, they all have thermostats, right? So I think copying is the first step, but I think...
That was the answers of your friend, but not when you did the hands-on.
But I think when I do different projects, I find alternative ways to do it because I don't have the means of doing exactly what the instructions told me to do. So I find other ways that is to my capability.
So did you
Yes, we have a question.
We have a mic that's running around.
I can use spectation voice.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, panels. It's been a very interesting morning. I learned a lot from all of you. With regards to the copying, right, there's a saying that says, copying the best form of complementary, actually, right? But I just want to ask, as an educator and as a mother living in Singapore, so I've been learning, I've been in the Singapore system for 40 years, I've been teaching it many years. Okay, so I want to know, for Miss Sari, okay, what makes you the person that you are? As a teacher, I'm amazed that you have this passion and this interest and this joy of learning. And is it from our education system? Because in Singapore there has been a lot of criticism that our kids are not creative and not original. That's why we have all these makers and ALPs and all this kind of thing. We're trying to push for that. So you being the person that you are now, helping the community in this field. So where did it come from? Did it come from our education system? I really want to know.
Okay, so my education system, background is a bit different. I went to Indonesia to study in a boarding school. But when I was a teenager, I was very angsty. I hate everyone hates me, that kind of thing. And everyone is doing the same thing. They just, in the morning, they go to school, they study, they have sports, whatever. I'm just sick of everything. I want to do something different. So I do things that people don't want to do. Like, I want to take up graphic design, I want to take up photography. That's something that my peers don't do at all. But I don't want to wait around for something to happen for me to do it. I want to start building up the skills on my own right now, without following your friends. So when I started doing art installation in LaSalle, my friends don't do it, but I just want to sign up for it. It's a volunteer thing, so I signed up for it. That's where I meet other geeks like me who likes to do all this kind of nonsense project. It's about stepping out of your comfort zone and going to new learning circles. Meet new people that likes to do the same thing like you do, and then they can empower each other to do something. So I think maker spaces in the future will be the space where people can meet like minds to build something useful.
I would suggest that Kiru answer that. She's also a thoroughbred. I also educated in Singapore. Kiru, why don't you say something? Our Director General of Education was a teacher.
For those of you who don't know me, I work at the Science Centre, and I came out of the Singapore education system, so I did university here and everything. And yes, it did. So to be honest, as I was going through, I was very grades focused, and it used to, well, in a way, there was no real opportunity for me to make and tinker. And this was many years ago, before initiatives have now been put into place to allow students to learn in more hands-on ways. Now, I think for me, the turning point was as I became a mother, and I had 2 children of my own, and I started reading up on how to bring kids up, and a lot more literature on early childhood, as well as getting how do you actually encourage really learning in children, and which is how I actually got interested and involved in the maker movement and started to learn newer things, things like coding, programming, and stuff like that. So that was the turning point for myself, yeah.
On that point, because I am an educator, I'm a teacher in the school, so I'm also interested in makers progress because I believe in the ideas that is being discussed here. But the point is that our education system is as such. So I'm trying to find ways in trying to convert students, parents, teachers, that this is a way of learning and this is a way to move forward, because our education system is very structured. So that is something that we have to maneuver around. So if a person who grows up in the system, like myself, is able to see, because I'm also into this because I have 3 kids. My boy is in the local system and he was interested in e-cigarette. So he said, "Mom, what is that? It's a vaping machine, right?" Because he saw people doing, not that he was he was just interested in the system. So I thought, and he says, and he went to look in YouTube, and he went to make a vapor machine or something that is similar to an e-cigarette box on his own. But of course he was asking for crazy things like soldering iron and some chemicals and food flavoring and all this kind of stuff. The problem is that this opportunity is not available for him in school, right? Because you have structured programs, even though you have ERP and so on and so forth, but it's still very structured. So how do you then nurture? I'm a tiger mom, so I said, yes, you can make a vehicle machine, but make sure that your maths is A and your science is A before you go make a vehicle machine. So my question is that how do we then convince? I am convinced, but how do you then go and tell parents that failing is okay? It's easy to say failing is alright, you should allow failing, but the consequence of failing, the implication of failing in the Singapore system is very high. So how then do you go about talking about this failure and the consequence and the attachment of what it means to be a failure in the system? How do we go about having this conversation?
I think we are confusing 2 concepts of low grades, or believing that everybody must have the same grades, or working with, like she did, the trial and error, try something out, do it. The issue is, do we give children some time to build, restructure? That will eventually affect your learning. In Playem, we do not seek against the system. We actually see a balance, a more balanced lifestyle, a more balanced where not everything in life is about a grade, which doesn't always say your cognitive level, your ability to copy the answer will be achievement, but it is to give children a space, a specific space where they can tinker with their hands, where they can work how an e-cigarette works, because eventually the concepts in the e-cigarettes are about filtering. It's about air that is flowing. It's a very significant concept. So are we giving those times in Play B, design spaces in school? We give teacher training on to work behind the concept, not at a product, because that concept, what I highlighted, it is being used again. So we have to make a difference between, school grades, a human being, achievement, and then where you come and what you invent. So I think we have to look at things separately.
I was telling Kilo to advertise all the Science Center programs for you to have, we create a kind of environment for informal learning. I just want to use what I shared a little bit earlier about how we should focus on the variables that are within our control. Certain things beyond our control. The whole society valuing success, as what Kilo was defining what success, I'm trying to allude to about how we define success. It's something sometimes we cannot control, but you as a mother, and then later the children as an individual can control the variable that's within themselves, how they want to choose to do this and that. So as parents, I guess we just give the assurance that even if you fail, even if you become the last person in the class, I still love you. You still have worth, you still can do something unusual. And the most successful person in this world in terms of wealth and richness he's not necessarily the first person in class. In fact, there's a book by this person who was a guru of Sachi and Sachi. He said that it's not about how good you are, it's how good you want to be. And he started his book by showing his class photograph. He said, oh, this circle is all my top children in my class. They're all number 1, number 2 in my class ranking. I'm among them, I mentioned nobody, I'm among the last. But today, I'm a guru of Sachi and Sachi. But where are all my top number 1 and number 2, chase after the grades? So I guess that part is something we can control. We can let our children understand that your worth is not defined by your exams. Let not the school define who you are because of your grades, but you can build your own confidence and define yourself. And this is what I actually give to my secondary school when asked me to keep a quote. I say that let not exam define who you are. Right? So I think that is something that is within our control. And I encourage you to do that.
Real quick. I think one thing about this is we cannot push that into the school, because school is really to produce for everyone. I mean, yes, we have very passionate teachers from time to time, and through the older education, we are lucky enough to run into 1 or 2 of them. But we also have to recognize teacher is a very tough job. Doesn't get paid enough, and work long hours. And we cannot starting to really push, okay, well, here's the maker education, now you try to figure out how to go teach it. Now you have to open up every door for the kids. I mean, the problem with this kind of education is, I mean, the standardized tests, they exist for a reason. And for the longest study in the US, standardized test is the only thing scared. I mean, that is something we need to recognize. The second part is this is where I think Science Center Makerspace is for. I mean, allocate a couple hours, toss him to the Makerspace. If he's interested, he can go figure it out. And that's just not even treated this as something important, just something, well, you either take 3 hours play with your Xbox, or you take 3 hours going to the Makerspace. This is not cutting into your other times. I think that's an easy way to solve it, and we have enough societal push and resource to do it.
Just for information, because we brought maker culture to STEM academic program into school, and it's very successful. Now, Ministry of Education asking us, can we develop something push now primary school? Okay, and then the textbooks that are coming out will involve Science Center devising hands-on things. So, at least in Singapore, we recognize this kind of. And Singapore also have this slogan that there are many roads towards the peak. You need not go through the path like what Li Chi said, right? You can go this way, and then you still reach finally. It's a matter of how we embrace that.
Yeah, I'll be short. So I'm a mother also. So I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I'm experiencing like how much failure that I can accept, like as a mother. So something like that. So I think like I'm saying 2 things. One is I totally agree that a standardized text exists for some reason. So I totally agree that, and I think it's unrealistic if we say now that we just put that and let's create something beautiful and good and for our next generation. That's unrealistic. But how we can move forward, because like people here are convinced, right? Are convinced with new concept. And how can we get more people involved? We need to admit that we are weak now because we don't have a lot of confidence that show the education, we say pedagogy, then the new way to teach is effective. And then what we need to do now, right now, is we need to get more and more successful examples to put together and make them effective. Maybe everyone is weak, like each teacher is weak, each mother or dad is weak. But when we come together, we can make a much larger voice, and that's one very key thing about maker culture. It's community based. So we are not looking for like another Steve Jobs in education field, but we need a community. We should join our hands together and create something new.
I think we are probably out of time. The speakers would be with us for lunch. Lunch is just outside in the lift lobby. So we'll meet back here at 1 o'clock. We'll be back